Thank you. I'll be sharing my time, Mr. Speaker, with the member for Scarborough Centre. Monsieur le Président, le débat d'aujourd'hui touche une question cruciale qui tient à cœur à l'ensemble des Canadiens. Nous comprenons bien que les difficultés de la pandémie ont causé à tant de Canadiens, aggravées par l'incertitude permanente qui plane quant à la durée de la pandémie. Mais, Monsieur le Président, nous voyons la lumière au bout du tunnel. Nous ne sommes pas très loin. Contrairement à ce que certains membres de l'opposition disent, nous savons que nos scientifiques travaillent très fort pour mettre au point un vaccin sûr et efficace. Et c'est la seule façon que nous allons pouvoir commencer à passer au-delà des perturbations que la pandémie a causées au cours des derniers mois. This has been an obviously very difficult time for Canadians. It is the challenge of a generation that we are facing, and yes, it is a marathon. It is a marathon that is not over yet. We are in this second wave of the pandemic still, and now is not the time to let our guard down. I know that we've already given up so much time with our loved ones and our family. For some, a loss of job. For others, their health. But I am here today to reassure Canadians that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We are nearing the end of this marathon. There is a way out of the hard times that we are currently in, and it is coming with the distribution of a vaccine. We have just a little further to go. Let me be clear, all Canadians will have the opportunity to be vaccinated for free. But we must ensure that there is no political interference in the scientific process that is being undertaken by Health Canada researchers right now. We must ensure that all Canadians have the utmost faith in the vaccine that will ultimately become available. And that is why I do very much take issue with the approach of opposition members who are essentially demanding that politicians, that us in this chamber decide on dates for the rollout of a vaccine. Perhaps the opposition is suggesting that we pressure Health Canada to move more quickly than they can in order to conduct their review. I don't know. What I do know for sure, Madam Speaker, is that for Canadians to have full confidence in the results, we need our independent scientists to do their work. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, now, I could go on for hours about my deep respect for researchers and scientists. My father is a medical researcher at the University of Montreal. He has spent the last 45 years trying to find a cure for cancer and diabetes, and I could tell you he would want politicians as far away from researchers as possible in order to allow the results of their work to be as sure as possible, to be as confident as we can in the results of their research and their work, Madam Speaker. I would like, for the remainder of my time, to describe the robust and, I believe, very clear plan that our government has put in place to date so that Canadians can once again find hope in what is about to come in the coming months, Madam Speaker. First, let me begin by discussing our approach to the acquisition of the vaccine. We knew that the quickest way for Canadians to get access to a vaccine was for Canada to buy internationally from vaccine companies and secure quantities of those vaccines before other countries. And that is exactly what we did, Madam Speaker. Our government has secured the best portfolio of vaccine candidates possible. We have been hard at work developing a comprehensive vaccination plan, and we are working with 7 different companies in order to make that happen. Here are the facts. Canada has agreements in place for 7 of the world's leading vaccine candidates: Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Sanofi, Medicago, Novavax, Oxford AstraZeneca, and that is the list of the 7 that we have currently in our contract portfolio. This represents access to approximately 10 doses of vaccine for each and every Canadian if all of these contract options are exercised. This is more than any other government around the world. Our Health Canada scientists are currently, as we speak, Madam Speaker, evaluating count them, 4 different vaccine candidates. Our Canadian Armed Forces are working right now and stand at the ready to distribute the vaccine as soon as one is approved. Nul autre que le Major Général Danny Fortin des Forces armées canadiennes, un Québécois en qui le pays entier a confiance, a été nommé pour se charger de notre distribution des vaccins en concert avec l'Agence de santé publique du Canada, ainsi bien sûr que Santé publique des provinces et des territoires. Nous avons déjà procuré énormément de fournitures dont nous aurons besoin, Madame la Présidente, comme par exemple 34 congélateurs qui apportent la capacité du gouvernement fédéral à 33,5 millions de vaccins ultra gelés et gelés. Cela s'ajoute à plusieurs dizaines de millions de seringues, aiguilles, compresses et j'en passe. And now that I've gone through those facts and numbers, I will point out that the co-founder and chairman of Moderna recently stated that Canada is one of the very first countries to pre-order their vaccine, which has shown so much promise. And we are guaranteed to receive a portion of the company's initial batch of vaccine doses, pending, of course, approvals by Health Canada. The goal here, Madam Speaker, is obviously to have as many options at hand as possible so that as soon as vaccines become available and are approved, Canadians will get safe, effective doses that will help us end this pandemic. We also know, however, that biomanufacturing capacity has declined in Canada over the last number of years. That is why we have been rebuilding our capacity and our capability to produce new types of vaccines in the future right here at home. And this requires significant investments today. We have announced hundreds of millions of dollars of investments in, for example, the Quebec company Medicago, which has a potential Canadian vaccine candidate, as well as in the National Research Council's facilities in Montreal. This investment will ensure that we have a much more robust domestic biomanufacturing capacity in the future than exists at the moment. When it comes to Canada's COVID-19 vaccine plan, we are ready with a diversified portfolio of vaccine candidates undergoing regulatory review and approval processes as we speak. We've secured access to tens of millions of vaccine doses that, as we have said earlier in this chamber, and I will repeat again, should be arriving in early 2021. And we are working with our partners in provinces and territories, and of course with our partners in First Nations, in order to ensure that those vaccines can be delivered to everybody in this country as quickly as possible. The bottom line is that Canadians want a safe and reliable vaccine, and that is what the Government of Canada will secure. But let me say that in order for this to work, we need to come together across party lines and all across our country in order to ensure that all Canadians have the utmost confidence to take the vaccine once it is ready. It is unity and not division, Madam Speaker, that we need now more than ever, as we enter this next critical phase of this exhausting marathon that is and has been the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What I find so frustrating from members of the government is they use these buzzwords like secured access, should be arriving, robust portfolio, work together. That's what we get for answers. It's not complicated. Don't wrap yourself in the approval process. If the Moderna vaccine is approved on this date, we will have X number delivered by this date. These are not complicated questions. Their refusal to answer them tells us they don't have a plan. Why can't they answer that simple question? When this vaccine's approved, it will be rolled out on this date with this many doses. It's not complicated.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I take issue with the word buzzwords. What I outlined in my speech were numerous facts and statistics of what our government has procured for Canadians. I would also indicate that, once again, he is accusing the government of saying that the vaccines should be arriving in the first quarter of 2021, something that we have repeated often, whereas, as I explained, it is our independent researchers that will decide on when the vaccine is ready and when it will be safe for Canadians to receive it.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Esquimalt-Saanich-Soo.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I listened with interest to the member's speech, and there's much to agree with in that speech. But when she starts to say that the goal of opposition members is to interfere with science, she's way off the mark. What we're talking about is not interfering with science. We're talking about the government's decisions and its decision-making process to get the vaccines on order and to get a distribution system in place. And when I tell people in my riding that we're likely looking at only having 8% of Canadians vaccinated by April, they say simply, that's not good enough.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague for his question. I do understand that Canadians would like the certainty of knowing how many Canadians will be vaccinated and exactly the date of that they will have access to that vaccine. It is not something that we can predict at the moment when our scientists are still reviewing vaccine candidates, a number of them. If there are several vaccines that are approved at the same time, perhaps more Canadians will be able to have access sooner. It is not possible for us to give a number of Canadians or a date because we have so many different options on the table at the moment that are undergoing investigation.
Comments? The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank the member for her comments. The briefing that was provided to MPs from officials indicated that the prioritization of the vaccine would go to individuals who are advanced age, healthcare workers, first responders, and Indigenous peoples. Now, based on the numbers that we know so far, and that is having 3 million vaccines available, is not even going to cover seniors, for example, is not going to cover the number of people that we need. So from my perspective, I'll tell you, in Vancouver East, in my community, we have very many vulnerable people and people who are frontline workers for service agencies. They're not part of this bracket. So I'd like to ask the member, should frontline workers also be included in terms of prioritization?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is the role of the federal government to procure vaccines and obviously the role of Health Canada, which is a federal agency, to be reviewing them. But it is also my understanding that provinces will play a very important role in deciding who and how the rollout will be done. And so I appreciate my member's, the member's question and her comment with respect to frontline workers. I too agree that frontline workers are critically important and should certainly receive access to vaccines as soon as possible. But I do not want to interfere either with decisions of provinces and territories at the local level.